The Balochistan conflict is a guerrilla war waged by Baloch nationalists against the governments of Pakistan and Iran in the Balochistan region, which covers Balochistan Province in southwestern Pakistan, Sistan and Baluchestan Province in southeastern Iran, and the Balochistan region of southern Afghanistan. Baloch want greater autonomy, increased royalties from natural resources and provincial revenue, and an independent nation-state. In the 2010s, attacks against the Shia community by sectarian groups, though not always directly related to the political struggle, have risen, contributing to tensions in Balochistan. In Pakistan's Balochistan Province, insurgencies by Baloch nationalists have been fought in 1948, 1958-59, 1962-63 and 1973-77, with an ongoing and reportedly stronger, broader insurgency beginning in 2003. This insurgency gained strength in conjunction with the deteriorating law and order situation in neighboring Afghanistan and instability at the federal level. Insurgents had attacked almost all prime installations of the Pakistani government, including the military cantonment in Quetta, Balochistan's capital, important government buildings, and killed senior government officials. As of May 2015, one foreign-based Baloch journalist calls anger over military operations among people in the province growing and often uncontrollable. The Pakistan government is considering asking the United Nations to take up the matter of foreign involvement. Although it has vast natural resources, Balochistan is one of Pakistan's poorest regions. Baloch separatists allege that the central government of Pakistan is systematically suppressing development in Balochistan to keep the Baluch weak, whilst their opponents argue that international business interests have been unwilling to invest in the region due to the continuing unrest. The Balochistan Liberation Army, designated as a terrorist organization by Pakistan and Britain, is the most widely known Baloch separatist group. Since 2000 it has conducted numerous deadly attacks on Pakistani troops, police, and civilians. Other separatist groups include Lashkar-e-Balochistan and the Baloch Liberation United Front. In 2005, a rebellion by Baloch against the Islamic Republic of Iran began. The fight over the Iri-Baloch region bordering Pakistan has not gained as much ground as the conflict in Pakistan. Human rights activists have accused nationalist militants and the government of Pakistan of human rights abuses. Area of dispute. Historical Balochistan covers the southern part of Sistan and Baluchestan Province, Iran, in the west, the Pakistani province of Balochistan in the east, and, in the northwest, Afghanistan's Helmand Province. The Gulf of Oman forms its southern border. Mountains and desert make up much of the region's terrain. Most Balochis live in part that falls within Pakistan's borders. Geographically, Balochistan Province is the largest region of Pakistan, comprising 44% of the country's total area, but it is the least inhabited, with only 5% of total population, and the least developed. Sunni Islam is the predominant religion. Stuart Nuthall, in his Atlas of Ethnic Conflict, describes the unrest in Balochistan as a nationalist, self-determination conflict. History. Background. The Baloch nationalist struggle is centered on the Khanate of Kalat, established in 1666 by Mir Ahmad, under Mir Nasir Khan I in 1758, who accepted the Afghan paramountcy. The boundaries of Kalat stretched up to Dera Ghazi Khan in the east and Bandar Abbas in the west. However, in November 1839, the British invaded Kalat and killed the Khan and his followers. Afterwards, the British influence in the region gradually grew. In 1869, the British political agent Robert Sandeman ended up mediating a dispute between the Khan of Kalat and the Sardars of Balochistan, and established the British primacy in the region. The tribal areas of Mari, Bugtai, Katran and Chagi were brought under the direct administration of a British agent, eventually to become the Chief Commissioner's province of Balochistan. Lasbla and Karan were declared special areas with a different political system. The remaining areas of Sarawak, Jalawan, Kaki and Makaran were retained as the Khanate of Kalat, supervised by a political agent of Kalat. In the 20th century, the educated Baloch middle class harbored hopes of an independent Balochistan free of the British. They formed a nationalist movement Anjuman-e-Balochistan in 1931. One of the first campaigns was to fight for the accession of Azamyan as the Khan of Kalat and a constitutional government to be established under him. They were successful in establishing Azamyan as the Khan, but the new Khan sided with the Sardars and turned his back on the Anjuman. His successor Mir Ahmad Yar Khan was more sympathetic to Anjuman, but he was averse to upsetting his relations with the British. The Anjuman, transformed into the Kalat State National Party, continued to fight for independence from the British. It was declared illegal by the Khanate in 1939 and its active leaders and activists were exiled. This paved the way for the formation of new political parties. Balochistan Muslim League allied to the Muslim League in June 1939 and Anjuman-i-Watan allied to the Indian National Congress in the same year. Mir Ahmad Yar Khan provided generous funding to the Muslim League both at the local and all India levels, and acquired the services of Muhammad Ali Jinnah as the legal advisor to the Kalat state. With Jinnah's advocacy, it was agreed on 4 August 1947 that the Kalat state will be independent on 5 August 1947, enjoying the same status as it originally held in 1838, having friendly relations with its neighbors. On the same day, an agreement was also signed with Dominion of Pakistan. According to the Article 1, the government of Pakistan agrees that Kalat is an independent state, being quite different in status from other states of India. However, the Article 4 stated, a standstill agreement will be made between Pakistan and Kalat by which Pakistan shall stand committed to all the responsibilities agreements signed by Kalat and the British government from 1839 to 1947, and by this, Pakistan shall be the legal, constitutional and political successor of the British. Through this agreement, the British paramountcy was transferred to Pakistan. The Khan of Kalat achieved a Pyrrhic victory by becoming independent on 15 August 1947. First conflict. Balochistan was divided between 4 princely states under the British Raj. 3 of these, Makran, Lasbela and Karan, joined with Pakistan in 1947 after independence. The Khan of Kalat, Ahmad Yar Khan, declared Kalat's independence as this was one of the options given to all of the 535 princely states by British Prime Minister Clement Attlee. Muhammad Ali Jinnah pressured Yar Khan to accept Pakistani rule, but the Khan stalled for time. Out of patience, on 27 March 1948, Pakistan formally annexed Kalat. In April, the military invaded, conquering the territory in a month. Yar Khan signed a treaty of accession, submitting to the federal government. His younger brothers, Princes Aga Abdul Karim Baloch and Muhammad Rahim, refused to lay down arms, leading the Dorshi Jalawan in unconventional attacks on the army until 1950. Jinnah and his successors allowed Yar Khan to retain his title until the province's dissolution in 1955. Second conflict. Nawab Nawroz Khan took up arms in resistance to the one-unit policy, which decreased government representation for tribal leaders. From 1958 to 1959, he and his followers started a guerrilla war against Pakistan and were arrested, charged with treason, and imprisoned in Hyderabad. 5 of his family members, sons and nephews, were subsequently hanged on charges of treason and aiding in the murder of Pakistani troops. Nawab Nawroz Khan later died in captivity. Third conflict. After the second conflict, a Baloch separatist movement gained momentum in the 1960s, following the introduction of a new constitution in 1956 which limited provincial autonomy and enacted the one-unit concept of political organization in Pakistan. Tension continued to grow amid consistent political disorder and instability at the federal level. The federal government tasked the Pakistan Army with building several new bases in key areas of Balochistan. Shah Muhammad Bijrani Mari led like-minded militants into guerrilla warfare from 1963 to 1969 by creating their own insurgent bases, spread out over 45,000 miles of land, from the Mengal tribal area in the south to the Mari and Bugtai tribal areas in the north. The goal was to force Pakistan to share revenue generated from the Suai gas fields with the tribal leaders. The insurgents bombed railway tracks and ambushed convoys. The army retaliated by destroying vast areas of the Mari tribe's land. This insurgency ended in 1969, with the Baloch separatists agreeing to a ceasefire. In 1970, Pakistani President Shia Khan abolished the one-unit policy, which led to the recognition of Balochistan as the 4th province of West Pakistan, including all the Balochistani princely states, the High Commissioner's Province, and Gwadar, an 800 square kilometers coastal area purchased from Oman by the Pakistani government. Fourth conflict 1973 to 77. The unrest continued into the 1970s, culminating in a government-ordered military operation in the region in 1973. In 1973, citing treason, President Bhutto dismissed the provincial governments of Balochistan and NWFP and imposed martial law in those areas, which led to armed insurgency. Airbacks Mari formed the Balochistan People's Liberation Front, which led large numbers of Mari and Mengal tribesmen into guerrilla warfare against the central government. According to some authors, the Pakistani military lost 300 to 400 soldiers during the conflict with the Baluchi separatists, while between 7,300 and 9,000 Baluchi militants and civilians were killed. Assisted by Iran, Pakistani forces inflicted heavy casualties on the separatists. The insurgency fell into decline after a return to the 4-province structure and the abolishment of the Sectarian system. Fifth conflict 2004 to date. In 2004, an insurgent attack on Gwadar port resulting in the deaths of 3 Chinese engineers and 4 wounded drew China into the conflict. In 2005, the Baloch political leaders Nawab Khan Bugtai and Mir Baloch Mari presented a 15-point agenda to the Pakistan government. The stated demands included greater control of the province's resources and a moratorium on the construction of military bases. On the 15th of December 2005, the Inspector General of the Frontier Corps, Major General Shujat Zamirdar, and his deputy Brigadier Salam Nawaz were wounded after shots were fired at the helicopter in Balochistan Province. The Provincial Interior Secretary later said that, after visiting Kolu, both of them were wounded in the leg but both are in stable condition. In August 2006, Nawab Khan Bugtai, 79 years old, was killed in fighting with the Pakistan Army, in which at least 60 Pakistani Pakistani soldiers and 7 officers were also killed. Pakistan's government had charged him with responsibility of a series of deadly bomb blasts and a rocket attack on President Pervez Musharraf. In April 2009, Baloch National Movement President Ghulam Muhammad Baloch and 2 other nationalist leaders were seized from a small legal office and were, allegedly, handcuffed, blindfolded and hustled into a waiting pickup truck which is in still use of intelligence forces in front of the lawyer and neighboring shopkeepers. The gunmen were allegedly speaking in Persian. 5 days later, on the 8th of April, the bullet-riddled bodies were found in a commercial area. The BLA claimed Pakistani forces were behind the killings, though international experts have deemed it odd that the Pakistani forces would be careless enough to allow the bodies to be found so easily and light Balochistan on fire if they were truly responsible. The discovery of the bodies sparked rioting and weeks of strikes, demonstrations, and civil resistance in cities and towns around Balochistan. See Turbot killings. On the 12th of August 2009, Khan of Kalat Mir Suleiman Dawood declared himself ruler of Balochistan and formally announced a council for independent Balochistan. The council's claimed domain includes Sistan and Baluchestan Province, as well as Pakistani Balochistan, but does not include Afghan-Baloch regions. The council claimed the allegiance of all separatist leaders, including Nawabzada Bramdar Bugti. Suleiman Dawood stated that the UK had a moral responsibility to raise the issue of Balochistan's illegal occupation at international level. The Economist writes, as supported with money, influence or sympathy by some members of the powerful Bugti tribe and by parts of the Baloch middle class. This makes today's insurgency stronger than previous ones, but the separatists will nevertheless struggle to prevail over Pakistan's huge army. US-based exiled Baloch journalist and newspaper editor Malik Siraj Akbar writes that the ongoing Baloch resistance has created serious challenges for the Pakistan government, unlike the past resistance movements, because it has lasted longer than previous insurgencies, has greater breadth, including the entire province, from rural mountainous regions to the city centers, involves Baloch women and children at regular protest rallies, and has drawn more international attention, including a 2012 hearing by the US Congress. Islamabad has accused its neighbor India of supporting the insurgency in Balochistan. However, infighting between insurgent groups as of late 2014 has weakened the movement. Conflict in Iran. In 2014 there were about 2 million ethnic Baloch in Iran. In 1928, the new Pahlavi government of Iran was sufficiently well established to turn its attention to Balochistan. Dost Muhammad Khan Baloch refused to submit, trusting in the network of alliances he had built up over the whole of the province south of the Sarhad. However, as soon as Reza Shah's army under General Amir Aman-ullah Jahanbani arrived in the area, the alliances dissolved. Dost Muhammad Khan was left with a relatively small force and few allies of any consequence. The Persian army had little difficulty in defeating him. Once again, Baloch political unity proved highly brittle. Dost Muhammad eventually surrendered and was pardoned on condition he live in Tehran. After a year, he escaped while on a hunting trip. In due course he was recaptured, and having killed his guard in the escape was hanged for murder. Baloch activists complained that the new governance was centralized and dominated by the Persians, forcing the Baloch community and other minorities to fight to protect the rights. Baloch people in Iran have several grievances. The Shiite Islamic Revolution perceived the predominantly the Sunni Baloch as a threat. Sistan and Baluchestan, the province where Baloch have traditionally lived in Iran, has the country's worst rates for life expectancy, adult literacy, primary school enrollment, access to improved water sources and sanitation, infant mortality rate of any province in Iran. Despite its important natural resources, the province has the lowest per capita income in Iran. Almost 80% of the Baloch live under the poverty line. Attacks by insurgents. In the early 2000s, the radical Islamist group Jundullah became active in Balochistan. The Al-Qaeda-linked terrorist organization has branches in both Iran and Pakistan. From 2006 to 2010, 254 to 346 people were killed in Jundullah-related violence in Iran. Attacks in Iran included bombings in Zahedan in 2007, which killed 18 people, and another bombing in 2009 that killed 20 people. In 2009, 43 people were killed in a bombing in Pishan. In July 2010, 27 people were killed in bombings in Zahedan. In 2010, a suicide bombing in Shia killed 38 people. Among the deaths in the Pishan bombings were two Iranian Revolutionary Guards generals, Noor Ali Shushtari, the deputy commander of the Revolutionary Guards Ground Forces, and Raja Bali Mamadzada, the Revolutionary Guards Sistan and Baluchestan Provincial commander. In 2010, the leader of Jundullah, Abd al-Malik Rigi, was killed, causing fragmentation of the group but not an end to insurgent attacks. In October 2013, the group Jaish al-Adl killed 14 Iranian border guards in an ambush in the town of Rustak, near the town of Saravan. Shortly thereafter, the Iranian authorities executed 16 Baluch on charges ranging from terrorism to drug trafficking. Another group, Harakat Ansar Iran, killed 2 Basij officers and wounded numerous civilians in a October 2012 suicide bombing against the Mosque of Imam Hussein, in the port city of Shia. According to analyst Daniele Grassi, Salafism plays an increasingly central role for the post-Jundullah militants of JAA and High. The rhetoric of groups such as High and JAA uses strongly anti-Shia tones. The two groups often refer to the Iranian Islamic Republic as a Safavid regime, in reference to the Safavid dynasty which introduced Shiism in Iran. Iran is also concerned about anti-Shia cooperation between the two groups and ISIS. Iran has accused America of supporting Jundullah for years. The U.S. government, which has officially designated Jundullah a terrorist organization, has denied this charge. Iran has been angered by JAA's use of Pakistani territory as a refuge, and has threatened military operations in Pakistan to counter terrorist groups on several occasions. Drivers of insurgency. In Balochistan, Pakistan, drivers of insurgency have been economic, cultural, involving immigration and human rights. Economic inequality, and Balochistan's status as a neglected province where a majority of population lacks amenities is a dimension in the conflict. Since the mid-1970s, Balochistan's share of Pakistan's GDP has dropped from 4.9 to 3.7%. Balochistan has the highest infant and maternal mortality rate, the highest poverty rate, and the lowest literacy rate in Pakistan. On the other hand, according to a report published in the Pakistani English-language Dawn newspaper, members of Balochistan's elite society, including provincial government ministers and officials, own pieces of land greater in size than some small towns of the country, and had luxury vehicles, properties, investments and businesses valued at millions of rupees. Development issues. Gas revenue. Balochistan receives less per unit in royalties than Sindh and Punjab provinces, since Balochistan's wellhead price 5 times lower than in Sindh and Punjab. Furthermore, the government has returned little of the royalties owed to the province, citing the need to recover operating costs. Consequently, Balochistan is heavily in debt. Balochistan Province receives 32 rupees and 71 paise per unit on gas revenues, including a royalty of 13 rupees and 90 paise, excise duty of 5 rupees and 9 paise, and gas development surcharge of 13 rupees and 72 paise. Many private individuals with gas deposits on the land also receive payments. Many Baluch argue that such royalties are too low. In response, in 2011 Prime Minister Syed Yusuf Raza Gilani announced an addition of Rs. 120 billion to the gas development surcharge and royalty portion of the Aghazi Hakuki Balochistan package. However, royalties often do not trickle down to the common people in Balochistan due to the corruption and wealth hoarding of Baloch tribal chiefs. This has hindered the growth of infrastructure. Regional inequality. Extensive road and rail links developed by British colonialists in northern parts of Balochistan Province have brought greater economic development to areas mainly inhabited by ethnic Pashtuns, which has also heightened nationalism among ethnic Baluch within the province. Gwadar. Another grievance is the construction of the megaport of Gwadar, which began in 2002 and is run entirely by the federal government. Baloch complained that construction of the port relies on Chinese engineers and laborers, and few Baluch have been employed. There has been little improvement in living standards for Baluch in the area. A parallel town for workers at Gwadar is being built close to the old one to segregate Baluch from the growing influx of outsiders. Government officials illegally sold much of the land around Gwadar, making massive profits at the expense of local Baluch. The Pakistani government responded to the Balochs' increased resentment and resistance to their economic marginalization in Gwadar with a hardline approach, stationing soldiers in the area to secure it from insurgent attacks. Multiculturalism and immigration. Due to the historical shortage of skilled labor in Balochistan, skilled workers are often imported from other regions. Their arrival means new industries can develop, boosting the local economy. However, nationalists argue that this creates resentment amongst the local inhabitants, like Karachi, which after migration from Balochistan, Central Asia, Iran, East Asia and especially a large number of people arriving from other areas of Pakistan in search of daily living settled there. It has been a national financial hub in Pakistan, thus the local inhabitants became a minority in the largest city of the province. Nationalists argue against multiculturalism and non-Baloch immigration. Karachi city has been playing a key role as a financial hub for Pakistan, and its economy has exploded to become one of the major cities in Asia as a seaport. However, the city continues to be a home for ethnic and sectarian violence. Baloch nationalists argue that migration leads to such events, and they are opposed to a similar situation in Balochistan. Mir Suleiman Dawood claims that the people in Balochistan remain deeply resentful of Pakistan's policies in the region, and he, apart from other, rather militant Baloch nationalist organizations, have openly called for India's assistance in Balochistan's separation from Pakistan. On the 12th of August 2009, Khan of Kalat Mir Suleiman Dawood declared himself ruler of Balochistan and formally made announcement of a Council for Independent Balochistan. The Council's claimed domain includes Baloch of Iran, apart from Pakistani Balochistan, but does not include Afghan Baloch region. regions, and the council contains all separatist leaders including Nawabzada Bramdar Bugti. Perceived marginalization as a result of increased Pashtun migration from Afghanistan during the Afghan War drives the insurgency. Education issues. A major factor in the Balochistan conflict is education, which nationalists feel has been neglected. The government of Pakistan recognizes that importing skilled labor from other regions has caused tensions in the region, and has thus sought to encourage scholarships for Baluchi students so they can participate in development programs. The quota for Baloch students in Punjab University was doubled in 2010 under the Chima Long scheme, on the order of CM Shahbaz Sharif. The provincial governments of Sindh, Punjab and KP said they would take steps to encourage Balochistan students to enroll and benefit from 100% scholarships. However, nationalists argue that not enough education development is taking place, and that the government has neglected its duty. Military response. Baluch have not tended to look favorably on Pakistan army intervention in politics, as they saw the military as dominated by Punjabis and the interests of the Punjabis and lacking Baloch representation. In the insurgencies themselves, the military's harsh response has led to a spiral of violence. A report by the Pakistan Security Research Unit notes Islamabad's militarized approach has led to violence, widespread human rights abuses, mass internal displacement, and the deaths of hundreds of civilians and armed personnel. According to the International Crisis Group, the attempt to crush the insurgency as in earlier insurgencies is feeding Baloch disaffection. Moderate Baluch have been alienated from the government by the imprisonment of civilians without charges, and routine kidnapping of dissidents.